Everybody, I'm a music nerd here, and I'm doing another beginner's guide. And if you see the title of this video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I had a subscriber say to me in the comments, you should do a beginner's guide to artists instead of just genres. And I thought about it, and I do these tier list videos where I go through artist discography, but some artists have too many albums in their discography, and that would take they'll be like an hour and a half long videos. So I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do a beginner's guide sometimes with artists. And today's video I'm gonna be talking about the late great David Bowie, who has basically redefined or influenced more genres that I can count on my hands and toes. And I'm going to recommend 5 awesome albums for anybody who has never heard or want to go back and check out David Bowie's great discography. These are the albums that are not necessarily the 5 best albums of his career, but the albums that define his career. So once again, guys, if you enjoy the content, you enjoy what you see in this channel, hit that like button down below, hit the subscribe button down below. If you're a return subscriber, hit the notification bell to be alerted for new content. First album I want to talk about, Hunky Dory, which came out in 1971. This is really David Bowie's first classic album. Really, I can't find a song here that's bad. And with Bowie in this point in his career, even just look at the album cover, he's transforming into this kind of androgynous character. Glam rock was really coming around the fold. David Bowie switched it up a little bit. He didn't want to just do like hard rock. He did what not dance hall, that's reggae. Showbiz tunes, Tin Pan Alley, vaudeville a little bit. And basically he expanded his sound. He wanted more pianos. He did different voices, spoke about different characters. And there's a couple of these songs where he's really wearing his influence on his sleeve, paying tribute to Bob Dylan, Andy Warhol. But there's other great songs too. I mean, the opener, Changes, is one of David Bowie's most famous songs. Basically the thesis statement of his career. Oh You Pretty Things is a great tune. Life on Mars, one of his most covered songs ever. So really a very solid David Bowie album, a great harbinger for things to come in his career. Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, this is one of his first concept albums about him playing a character. This is, the Ziggy Stardust character, arguably his most famous character that people remember him by. People still go to Halloween dressed up as this character. And really this was coming out the dawn of the 70s, playing with post-apocalyptic themes. Glam rock was very huge in England, but David Bowie decided to take it one step further like he always does and actually dress like this alien figure that nobody, and you gotta remember, this is 1972. I mean, we've seen Lady Gaga and John, tons of people, Harry Styles with their fashion sense being extravagant, but you gotta look at this time and nobody was doing this. I mean, nobody, especially a male rock figure, nobody was dressing like this. So you can imagine conservatives, traditional rock fans were like, who the fuck is this? And David Bowie, doing what he always does, seeing the future before anybody else does, really with this album influencing punk rock and grunge music and glam metal and heavy metal in the 80s, just doing that. But the album itself, another great album, probably some would say is his best album. Another album where there are no bad songs here. And you got the Ziggy Stardust, the song which is the thesis statement of the album, the way it starts 5 years with the drum that come in and starts a cappella, great setup. Moon Age Daydream, Suffragette City, even the closer, Rock and Roll Suicide. Basically Bowie just kind of killing his character, just like, I want to die like a famous rock and roll star. And that's something that at the time you were seeing very young and admired rock stars such as Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, all dying before they turned 30. So really that was coming in the public fold, and Bowie was kind of playing upon that, how he wants to die a true rock and roll death. It's just an incredible album, one of the best albums ever made in the rock genre. Station to Station, which came out in 1976. Now by this time in Bowie's career, he was doing the whole plastic soul era with Young Americans, even Diamond Dogs, and he was kind of in a transitional period in his career. He was deep into cocaine. He even says that he barely remembers making this album, which is just fascinating to me. I mean, this is one of his most famous albums, his most famous characters, and he has no idea how he made this album. Coming into this album, he just released, Fame, arguably his biggest single at the time, and so playing with R&B and soul sounds. Disco was very huge in America at this time, but also he was playing with electronic sounds and stuff that he would flirt with just a year later with the album Low when he moved to Berlin. So, like I said, it's a very transitional album, but what a masterful transitional album. This is still an album with huge focus. Bowie playing with the Thin White Duke character, very controversial character at the time, talking about fascism and all that crazy stuff. Go watch his interviews around this time. He was really out of his mind in the drug era. The title song, Station to Station, a 10-minute track, and it never lets up. It starts off with a slow rocking, setting it up, and then by halfway point, it gets to this disco beat, and it just makes you want to dance. It's a great way to set up this album. Songs like TVC, 1-5, Golden Years, a hit single from this album, one of Bowie's truest disco songs that crossed over to black audiences. Around this time, Bowie was huge with black audiences, even being on Soul Train at the time when Soul Train didn't have a lot of white artists. And then Word on a Wing, one of his greatest ballads, an underrated song, one of my top 5 Bowie songs in general, just a beautiful ballad. Bowie, one of his greatest singing performances, just really laying it out there as this character who's just searching for love. Yeah, I mean, the album's only, 6 songs, but every one of them hits strong. Everyone has its own flavor. Incredible album. Really, Bowie just demonstrating why he was one of the most popular and innovative figures in the 70s. So definitely check out this album. Next album we're going to be talking about is Heroes, which came out just a year after Station to Station. This was at a time where Bowie fully moved from LA to Berlin, Germany with Iggy Pop. They did some projects together, but really becoming influenced by German electronic music and bands just like Can, Kraftwerk, and Neu. Bowie was in love with that type of sound, and he flirted a little bit with Station to Station, but then he made Low, another great album that Bowie did, and really an album, when you look at it in hindsight, very innovative, because half the album is traditional rock songs, electro rock songs, but the second half is just instrumentals. And just like how people who were into Bowie's glam rock period was completely puzzled by the R&B change, you can imagine people who were into his disco and R&B phase listen to this what the fuck is this? But the reason why I chose Heroes is because Bowie was more confident in developing this sound, and the details are much richer. Even though Low is an incredible album, he's definitely experimenting, but Heroes, he was making stronger songs, more cinematic instrumentals. Everybody knows the title track Heroes, which is probably his most famous song, but there's other deep cuts here too, like Beauty and the Beast, the way that kind of pops at the first minute when he's basically hulking up. Incredible song. Joe the Lion, another underrated song where it's 2 structures, a breakdown in the middle, and just it goes back to this crazy electronic rock song that just completely fizzles at the end. And then you have Sons of the Silent Age, and then you have great instrumentals like Moss Garden and V2 Schneider, which has a great beat to it. I think if you're are interested in Bowie's electronic Germany period, I think this is the album to start with, because it really hones all of his ideas of that period into great material. Not for everybody, but if you're interested to see what Bowie was doing at this time in Berlin, check out this album. The last album I'm going to be talking about is Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, which came out in 1980. A lot of people refer to this as the last great Bowie album. I think it's a very underrated album. His discography doesn't get talked about as much as Ziggy Stardust or Low or Station to Station, but really Bowie flipping the script again. By this time, he was fully back in the United States, really doing traditional rock songs again. You could still hear the influences from the Berlin period seep into this record, but in all, it's a very traditional rock record, but taking in new wave sounds and new romantic sounds, what was going on in England at the time. People like Gary Newman and Duran Duran, Human League, like really post-punk genre was in full bloom at this time, and Bowie was touching on it, even though he had influenced that genre years before. So Bowie reinvented himself, but really a great collection of songs here. I would say this is probably the definitive Bowie album because it's the culmination of all the experiments and sounds he's tried to do in the 70s. I mean, everything's in here. You got Fashion, which could have been on his soul R&B albums in the mid 70s. There's Ashes to Ashes, which could have been on Hunky Dory. You even have like Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, that kind of like very grungy, post-apocalyptic, even does like weird stuff with his voice here. Very dark song that could have been on his electronic period. So I mean, really, I think it's an album that doesn't get talked about as much. It's one of his more successful albums. Bowie still made good albums in the 80s and 90s. Let's Dance is decent, and Earthling, I think it's an underrated album in the 90s where he was with 9 Inch Nails. Really, this is front to back, this is Bowie's like last like amazing album, really, until I would say his last album, Black Star, one of my favorite albums, because Bowie is just really 15 years in his career, he's still being bold. He's still not trying to fit in with the new crowd, but he's kind of established himself. And he even says in one of the songs like Teenage Wildlife, where it's like saying like, no, I'm the OG of this shit. You got all these people trying to copy my style. No, I'm gonna let people know that I'm still the king of the weirdos. Yeah, definitely check out this album. I especially love the song Fashion, which has been used in many different commercials and all that stuff. That song with a great guitar from Robert Fripp, which kind of a disco-y R&B song featuring the guitars from King Crimson. It's not supposed to work, but Bowie makes it work because that's how good he is. So yeah, that is my 5 albums for Bowie if you're looking to get into him. If you're young and you heard about David Bowie but you want to know a place to start with his music, check out these 5 albums. All of them are awesome in their own ways. And yeah, if you have any other recommendations for any artists that should tackle in my beginner's guide videos, let me know in the comment section. Tell me what your favorite and songs and albums from Bowie. YouTube recommends these 2 reviews to check out after this one. I've done plenty of beginner's guide videos, so check out that playlist. Love you guys, as always. Peace.